welcome back to another episode of Living Well with Kate. Today I'm going to show you how I make homemade dog food for my girl Isaiah. So I found that this is a lot cheaper than doing any type of like order or food service. So pretty much I go to the butcher and I stock up on ingredients. I'm going to show you how to make it, then I pre-package it out, and I save about 2 times the money. So all of this is probably like $160 and it'll last me maybe 2 to 3 months. This is a hack. If you have a dog, I highly suggest you start cooking their food at home. Let me show you how. So when making your dog food at home, you're going to want to make sure that it is a balanced diet and that your pup is getting all the nutrients that they need. So first I have probably about 30 pounds of ground beef here. I also have beef liver and then green peas and a zucchini. What you don't see is that this will be the main base for the meals, but then I always use either like sweet potatoes or rice to level it out. And then I also do this on like a per meal basis, but I'll also add in an egg, some fish oil, and some turmeric. So like for humans, turmeric is really great at having anti-inflammatory and reducing inflammation properties. Fish oil supports healthy bone and joints, skin, hair, and nails. And then egg is a good source of protein. So by adding in all of these components, you're setting yourself and your dog up for success. So first thing that we're gonna do is we're gonna cook the ground beef. So it'll usually take me a couple different times to get it cooked properly. So what we're first gonna do, and I just use a large red pot like this, so I'll fill it to about maybe like 3/4 of the way full with ground beef. And since we're touching raw meat and I'm gonna be touching liver and it's not so great, always wear gloves. And I know the liver is kind of like the outside. Anytime you're doing dog food at home, thinking about 10% of the diet, 10% of that meal should be animal organs. Because think about it, dogs are not naturally domesticated. They come from wild animals. And even more so specifically, Zaya, her dog breed is a primitive dog breed, so it's very important for her to get organs and red meat into her diet. And you don't like to do it too much because we're gonna add the other ingredients in, but I'll show you. So right now, we're about 3/4 of the way full, so I'll get that started on the stove. And I'll usually have that hang around medium, just so it doesn't cook too fast and that it doesn't cook too slow. We'll set this aside, and then when I first started using beef liver, I would sit and I would cut up the little livers. Not anymore, I just throw them in whole. And there's a lot of juice that comes with the beef liver. I don't like to waste it, so a lot of times I'll pour the juice. Ooh, yeah. So this giant beef liver has a ton of nutrients, and you can think about what you eat is what helps you. So when you're eating liver, it's also gonna have benefits for your liver organ. So now that we have the meat cooking, I will take one of the livers and just kind of drop it in. So when we're dropping in the liver, it's super easy to tear apart, and we'll want to put it into smaller pieces so it's easier for her to digest. And you can see I kind of just run my thumbs through the entire organ itself and rip it to pieces. Next, I'll cut up the zucchini, and the zucchini can just cook directly with the ground beef, super easy. And vegetables aren't as important in a dog's diet as they are in humans. Yes, they are, but humans need far more vegetables than dogs do. So I'll probably only use 1/4 of this zucchini for each batch, and then I'll use maybe a 1/2 cup of peas. And since I'm using frozen peas, I can just add those at the end. Funny story, when I first got Zaya, she would pick out all of the vegetables. So when I would go to her bowl, there would just be little vegetables on the ground everywhere, which is so funny because like kids don't like eating vegetables, but I guess it's the same for dogs too. So that's a good amount right there. And I'll just toss these in now to give them time to cook. So we have our liver and our zucchini in first. So we'll start to give that just start to mix it up. So now that it's been cooking for like 10 minutes, the meat is starting to look brown, I can add in my peas. And we don't want to add them too early again because they're frozen, so they don't really take that much time to cook. And I guesstimate a little bit, but I said maybe around like half a cup, fourth of a cup. Now, once they're in there, we're gonna give everything a good stir. And then usually I'll kind of gauge how many peas I can see every time I stir through if I need to add any more. So since ground beef is really fatty, once this first batch is done cooking, I get out my big strainer and I'll strain all the meat and the veggies and the liver into this. Then I'll get my gallon bags out because this is how I wrap them up, and usually I'll do maybe about this much and it'll last like 2 to 3 days. But I mean, you can see how much food I have here. I try and do this once every 3 months so it just makes your life easier, because originally I was just making her food every day, making like a whole nother meal for her, which I love her, but you know, a girl's got to cook for herself too. So now that our ground beef is completely cooked through, we can put it over the strainer. I like to shake it out just to make sure I get all that excess grease out of it. Now that our ground beef is relatively cooled off, I'll take one of the bags and put a glove on because gross, we don't like to touch meat. And I'll fill it about 1/4 of the way. Okay, so that looks good. So let's see how many more. Usually I get about 2 bags per batch. And the reason I don't fill it all the way is what I found is that after I thaw it, she's kind of, like I said, she's kind of picky, so she'll only eat it for a couple days. After that, she gets a little picky about it. So there you have it. She's set for maybe a week. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode of Living Well with Kate. I hope you enjoyed learning how to meal prep for your dog in a healthy and nutritious way, and also that is friendly to the wallet. Like I said, I only spent about $160 on all of this, and it should last me for a couple months. But right now, I got a week's worth done, and I've got a way to go. So let me get back to it. If you want to see more of what's on my channel, subscribe to my page. And always remember, when you live better, you live well. I'll see you next time.